And we welcome you on into another episode of the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. It's Mitch Spinell and Mitchell Balla here to give you the latest in the sporting world. Mitch, we are approaching the greatest time of the year in terms of college athletics, and we are also getting to a number of other events here as we approach the weekend.
Mitch, good to be back. Can you hear this?
Loud and clear. It's like some paper rustling for those of you who can't see at home.
That's me throwing away my bracket because it's probably already busted before the tournament even started.
2 games into the tournament already, and you're throwing out your bracket. Well, that's what we were talking about. That's what we were talking about in the last episode, man. You don't get that joy of, or I guess, a sadness of tearing up your bracket after it's finally been busted when we have apps on our phone now. But yeah, it's good to see you're keeping true to tradition, and we thank you for keeping to tradition. If this is your second or at least second time returning to this podcast, I don't have a paper bracket in front of me, but I'll sure to get one here very soon. In the meantime, we thank you guys for watching or listening here on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or SoundCloud, courtesy of Spotify for podcasters. You can also find us here on YouTube. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell. You can also find us on our website, bigtimesportsohio.com, or also on our Twitter page at BTS Ohio, at Big Time Sports Ohio on Facebook and Instagram, as well as at Mitch Spinell and at Mitchell Balla, pretty much everywhere there is to be added. So, Mitch, we're going to keep off the tournament talk for the next couple of segments. We have very special guests coming on the podcast here. I was lucky enough to speak with a player that will be participating in the upcoming tournament in one Dalton Bolin of the College of Charleston. Dalton, obviously known for his days playing basketball at West Liberty and Indian Valley High Schools, but he and the Cougars will be playing San Diego State this Thursday in the tournament. So that's very exciting. But for now, we're going to stick to the professional side where we have a lot of stuff going on in the NBA. Cavaliers take on the 76ers tonight. This is, I believe, their third time playing Philadelphia this year. They've won one, lost one, and they're coming back to Cleveland for what could be a potential playoff matchup in the regular season. Mitch, last time we saw the Cavaliers play Philadelphia, it wasn't a beautiful sight, to say the least. Cavaliers got down very big early, and they were able to mount somewhat of a comeback to make it respectable, but it was not enough to complete a full rally. When you look at this game tonight compared to where they were a few weeks ago, what changes need to be made for this Cavalier team to ensure that they can get what would be a pretty significant statement-making victory over Philly tonight?
Well, Mitch, it's going to have to really depend on the availability of some of the Cavs players. The Cavs are on the second night of a back-to-back tonight when they take on Philadelphia. They had a gritty win last night against a pretty bad Charlotte Hornets team. Donovan Mitchell out, Jarrett Allen out. Now, I believe Mitchell probably was rested more so because of the magnitude of this game tonight. But the Jarrett Allen injury, Mitch, is fascinating because of, I believe it's an eye injury. And if he is unable to go, he had missed a few games before that. All of a sudden, you're asking Evan Mobley with the tall task, no pun intended on the height, of trying to defend right now one of the MVP candidates. Whether you think the MVP race is already over and it's going to Jokic, it looks like Embiid is in line for his third straight second place finish. One of the top centers, probably the second best center in all of basketball behind Jokic. And now you're going to ask somebody in their second year who's made tremendous strides throughout the season to guard Joel Embiid. Embiid, obviously, with the size advantage in terms of height, but also in weight, the ability to bully Mobley. Can the Cavs, if Allen is unavailable, which as we record this, we don't know yet. It's obviously early in the morning as we're recording this. But if he's not available and it's Evan Mobley, can Evan Mobley hold his own ground, go toe-to-toe with an MVP candidate, and perform on both ends of the floor? Donovan Mitchell is going to get his. Darius Garland's going to get his. So if Allen's out, who is going to step up? Last night, it was Karis LeVert in a starting role. Jetty Osman off the bench was phenomenal. Who is going to step up for the Cavs? Somebody's going to have to step up. And this is a huge game, Mitch, because as we sit here recording right now, the Cavs are 3 games behind Philadelphia of the number 3 seed in the East. Now, why is that important? First off, you want to stay in the top 4 for home court advantage. We know how much better this team is at home, but the Cavs' remaining schedule after tonight, Mitch, is very, very favorable. And if you can somehow get a win here tonight to close that gap to 2 games with about 12 to 15 games, I know some teams are ahead of each other in terms of games played, you have a realistic chance to kind of end up in the 3 spot, which I would much rather play Boston before I would rather play Milwaukee. That's just my personal opinion. But I more am intrigued because, Mitch, the last time we saw this matchup, the last game before the All-Star break, they came out flat. They got bullied in the first quarter. This Cavaliers team cannot afford to do that again tonight. We know how great they are at making comebacks in games. They did it last night against a bad Charlotte team. They did it against Boston. This Philly team, though, Mitch, who has won 5 in a row, 7 of their last 10, knows how important this game is, and the Cavs know how important it is. So if they can come out with some fire, regardless if Allen plays tonight or not, I like their chances. But the fact that they're underdogs at home to Philly as the line opened this morning, 2.5 points, says something to me.
You definitely don't want to be 8 games behind the final 3 weeks of the season. And if you get this victory tonight over Philly, that's a legitimate chance to take one of those 3 spots, especially with the schedule that you mentioned throughout the rest of the regular season. You take on Washington, your next game. You have a back-to-back against Brooklyn. You have Houston, Atlanta, the Knicks. I'll give you that one. Indiana, Orlando, Charlotte. Those are teams you should beat. Those are teams you have beaten before. And if the Cavaliers can pick up some sort of victory tonight, that would be a big statement victory, I think, to hold over into the remainder of the regular season, being like, can the Cavs really compete with these serious teams? Because they have won against all these teams so far this year.
Yeah.
But as the season has drawn on and Milwaukee and Boston have really found their footing, Milwaukee especially, that's when I think the separation has been made. And Philadelphia, I think, is the hottest team out of the 4 down this stretch so far over the last week and a half. So I'm curious to see if the Cavaliers can make enough of a statement to say, take it seriously when we get to these playoffs. Although I think teams like, the Knicks and maybe even Miami might be looking for more statements down the regular season stretch, because not a lot of people are taking them seriously. The Knicks are 10 games behind first place in the East, 3 games behind the Cavaliers. But they've had some trouble against the Knicks so far this season. And then Miami, we saw them give the Cavaliers a bit of a run the fourth quarter the other night in Miami and South Beach. And I'm curious as to what this team could do coming out of what potentially might be the play-in, but they could snap up that 6th seed if Brooklyn doesn't keep pace at number 6.
And Mitch, Brooklyn is, I think, really the most interesting team. They traded away Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving. I think we all kind of thought, well, with where they were at in playoff positioning, they're a playing team. Mitch, they're 5-5 in their last 10. Yeah, that's not great. It's 500 ball, but if they play 500 ball the rest of the season, they're not going to fall into the play-in spot. They could be 6. Depending what the Knicks do, they could be 5. That could be the first round matchup for the Cavs. They have, all of a sudden, they're playing very good team basketball. They're not dependent on Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant to go bail them out anymore. They are going to move the ball around. They are very, I realistically thought, Mitch, that they were probably going to float around 500 in terms of the record by the end of the year. They're 9 games above right now at 39-30. This Nets team is actually very intriguing. And to me, Mitch, I think I said it before, I'd rather play the Knicks over the Nets. And I think I would rather keep that, because the Nets all of a sudden are somewhat worrisome, in my opinion, because I feel like they're playing with house money in terms of no one thought we were going to be here. We traded our top 2 players, 2 of the best players in the NBA. We have a head coach that took over midseason. Whatever we do is cool. Like we're not expected to be here. We're Miami. You're 3 years removed from an NBA Finals appearance, 2 years removed from an Eastern Conference Finals appearance. You have some top players. You have Spoelstra, pressures on them. The Knicks, obviously, you always have pressure being in New York, but this is going to be interesting down the stretch, because not only that, but you look at the bottom of the standings. The Bulls are 1 game back in the win column of the Wizards. They're both 18 games out of first, but the Bulls and the Pacers, a game back of the Wizards and Bulls. Like, those teams still have a fighter's chance to get into the play-in tournament. Like, there's going to be a lot decided here in the last couple of weeks. And that's why if the Cavs can just take care of business against these bottom feeder teams, like we mentioned, they play Charlotte. They're about to be eliminated. Orlando again, Indiana again, Houston still. Like, if you beat those teams and just played 500 ball the rest of the way, Mitch, I think the Cavs are fine in staying in that 4 seed. But if you win tonight and you can close that gap to 2 with Philly and you beat those bottom feeder teams, there's a really good chance you're looking at the 3 seed. And I would love to see it. But I also want to just say, I think the 1 seed's out of question for everybody in the East. Milwaukee is the only team that's clinched a playoff spot already in the NBA. And I don't think a lot of people are paying attention. Mitch, they have the best record in the NBA by 3 games. It was all talk all season long has been Denver, Denver, Denver. And for rightfully so, right? Denver's been phenomenal. Jokic is looking like he's going to win his 3rd consecutive MVP award. But Milwaukee who I don't know how you feel, Mitch, but I feel like when healthy, Giannis is still the top player in the NBA currently. A team that won the finals 2 years ago, I feel like as a one seed clinching a playoff spot with 50 wins already, they're almost flying under the radar still.
Yeah, it was when that 16 game winning streak was snapped. Everyone's like, yeah, well, yeah, you're back to where we thought you'd be. And Milwaukee's the only team right now that has clinched a playoff spot. They're the only team that has reached the 50 win mark for the season, 50 and 19, and 3 games ahead of the Celtics. And they've had some very impressive wins against the likes of Boston and Philadelphia this year, although Philadelphia beat them a few weeks ago to snap that win streak. And Denver, it's kind of the same thing. Denver is basically where we thought they would be. They're 46 and 23, although they have lost 4 in a row and are struggling on the road, 16 and 17 on the season. It's impossible to win at their place, 30 and 6. It's near impossible, I should say. And then you got Memphis, which is another interesting team because obviously with John Morant possibly out for the rest of the season, they're keeping pace. They ended up beating Dallas the other night, albeit without Kyrie or Luka Doncic on the floor. But it's interesting to see them still kind of keeping afloat in second compared to Sacramento and Phoenix, who are still, gaining somewhat steam at 3 and 4, respectively, in the standings.
Mitch, I'm glad you mentioned that game between Memphis and Dallas the other night, because then today, waking up, not sure if you saw already, there's talks between the NBA and NBA Players Association. You mentioned the Mavericks did not have Luka or Kyrie. When you look at a team like the Clippers, follow me here. This might be a little tough. So listeners, just lock in really quick. We know that Kawhi and Paul George haven't played a lot. We know they're both coming off injuries. Kawhi, obviously, a more significant injury. I get that. The big talk of the league this year has been load management. Now there's talks that they are going to potentially propose a minimum game requirement for player awards in the NBA to maybe dictate how much load management goes on with players. But was this load management by the Mavericks, or is this more of a strategy thing? And you know what? You haven't played us yet with Kyrie. We're not going to show you what we have because we could realistically meet you in the playoffs if we win our play-in series. Do you think about it that far in advance? Like, this is a team that has Jason Kidd as a head coach. You know, whether you think he's a good head coach or not, I still think he's a very smart basketball mind. I mean, the guy won NBA championships. He was a multiple-time All-Star. I just find it intriguing that these games are huge. There's been a lot of games right now in the Western Conference because the standings are so packed besides the number one seed right now, Mitch. And some of these players are taking games off at the most vital point of the season. Is this actual load management, or is this more of a strategic thing, do you think, from some teams?
I can't say for sure. My gut reaction is just to say basic load management because we've seen it become so common. I mean, somewhat unfortunately nowadays in the NBA. The minimum for requirements. First of all, I thought that was. I mean, I knew that the MVP has a minimum requirement of games you would have to play to qualify for that. The awards thing is like that's sort of meh to me. I would think that the league might consider putting a league requirement on certain what are they are incentives or bonuses that players can receive in their contracts in order to be able to be like, you know what, I'm going to play this game, play this amount of games, get my $5 million signing or extra bonus, and then that'll be the incentive to bring players back onto the floor on nights when people want to see them and then they can't. But yeah, it seems like such a non-story right now. It could develop into something down the line if we were to hear from Dallas themselves or maybe another team being like they're trying to use a strategy to not show you what could be in the postseason, which is still possible because Memphis is 2 right now. Dallas is 9 at 34 and 35, which is tied with Oklahoma City and the Lakers for the 8, 9, and 10 spots. And if Utah slips in there, Utah seems like such a fascinating team to me too because they're 33 and 36, even though they've had one of the best all stars this year in Lauri Markkanen. They've just kind of fallen off, and it just goes to show you, even if even those teams in the West that are out of the playoff running right now can still at least compete. They just had some bad things go through them throughout the regular season. There was also some talk, well, not talk, a lot of reports that flew in the last couple of days when the official league free agency period came to pass. And there was a number of things that were flying through. The big one that happened yesterday was I remember seeing the Cowboys acquiring Stephon Gilmore from the Indianapolis Colts, which was a bit of a surprise. He's 32 years old. I mean, he's been a 3-time Pro Bowler, former Super Bowl champion, and re-signing linebacker Leighton Vander Esch is a very interesting move that bolsters the Cowboys defense. I was a little surprised that Dallas was initially going radio silent before this deal, because I thought they might try to do some things to bolster the offense. Is this the right direction, you think, that Dallas should be focusing more on their rushes more than they should, to try and get receivers for Dak?
I think it has to be, because I think they know they messed up by trading Amari Cooper. Obviously, they had to do it for money reasons, but Mitch, you look at the NFC: San Francisco, Philadelphia, Dallas. After that, who's next? And if you're Dallas, what's the one thing those other two teams in Philadelphia and the Niners had over you? It's obviously defense. Not to mention, if you're going to win the NFC, you're going to have a strong defense to have a chance to win the Super Bowl after what we are seeing right now in the AFC, assuming a certain quarterback is traded to the AFC here soon. I don't mind it. I also think now Trayvon Diggs, yes, he led the league in interceptions. That same year, Mitch, he also gave up the most yards from scrimmage in the history of the NFL for a cornerback. He is not, I don't want to say he sucks, but he's not an elite level corner. When you throw the ball at him that much, obviously he's going to be able to make plays over and over. But now having Stephon Gilmore on the other side is going to help. I think that I almost said Mavericks. I think the Cowboys got better defensively, and it's going to help them too. Keep in mind, maybe Mike McCarthy doesn't think they need a whole lot of offensive weapons because he's calling the plays this year.
Right.
It was Kellen Moore last year. It's a completely different offensive system, I'm assuming, that we're going to see from Dallas. So maybe Mike McCarthy thinks, hey, we're okay. Maybe they'll address it in the draft. Who knows? But I think with where they're at in the NFC, as much as I hate the Cowboys and I'll never believe in them until they prove me wrong, I don't think there's any argument right now, Mitch. The top three teams in the NFC are the Niners, the Eagles, and the Cowboys. Because after that, I don't know who else to pick right now. It's if Aaron Rodgers stays in Green Bay, you have to obviously give them the benefit of the doubt. But at the same time, with what they did last year, as much as I hate Dallas, I'm still taking Dallas over Green Bay. And so It's a 3-team race in the NFC to where it's an 8-team race in the AFC. So I think Dallas made the right move here, and they could still make other moves. Listen, was it if you would have told me the first free agent or the first wide receiver acquisition was going to be Jacoby Myers with the Raiders, I wouldn't have believed you. I mean, there's other wide receivers out there. Thielen got cut. There's more moves to be made. I personally think it's been a very quiet tampering period and free agency so far in the NFL. You've had some guys get paid, but compared to years past, it has not been as big of a free agent frenzy as we are so accustomed to.
No, I mean, the Cowboys, and you remember Mike McCarthy's comments from this offseason, how after the firing of Kellen Moore as the offensive coordinator, he shared his offensive philosophy with the media, saying that, Moore wanted to light up the scoreboard, but he wanted to run the damn ball so they could rest the defense. And he didn't desire to be the number one offense in the league, which is, it's interesting to the point of I assume he wants to put the best talent he can on the field, but it's interesting to say that, you kind of want to focus more on your ground game, especially when it seems like, and we're just getting this report from a few minutes ago, the Cowboys are set to cut Ezekiel Elliott as soon as this afternoon. So it's the end of the era after 7 years or something like that in Dallas, which is unfortunate for him, even though it was pretty much, we saw it in the cards from this past season. Tony Pollard came up, looked solid. Zeke looked broken down, unfortunately. Yeah. And I mean, that's mainly for the Cowboys side. I also mentioned the Amari Cooper thing. I follow a guy named Scooter Magruder on Twitter. He's like a sports guy, and he is a Cowboys fan. And he mentioned he was kind of going at the Browns a little bit, because I believe that the deal for Gilmore was using a 5th round selection that the Browns offered Dallas. And he was basically like, oh, we turned Amari Cooper into Stephon Gilmore. It's like, yeah, but Amari Cooper isn't washed. Amari Cooper's not a terrible receiver now. What are we doing here? But the Browns did make a couple of free agent signings from the last couple of days. I'm really trying to make sure I get it right. I need to take a minute. Go. You want to try? Go ahead, because I'm not gonna get it wrong.
Obaniah Okoronkwo.
Almost perfect there. Well, we got him for 3 years, $22 million, letting Jadeveon Clowney out the door this season. It's an interesting signing. He's only managed 5 sacks this past season with Houston, but he looks like he's a guy who can be be a presence on the edge, and I'm very interested in seeing how he's able to work in Jim Schwartz's operative system. I mean, what do you think of this deal?
I think the Browns addressed the need that obviously needed to be filled. And at the same time, Mitch, I'm okay with going after a guy that we weren't really focused on, right? We were talking about big names, and sometimes, Mitch, the big names aren't what you need. And Okoronkwo, looking at his grades and some of the play he's had in Houston, keep in mind that's on a bad Houston Texan team with nobody else really of name on the defensive side of the ball. He's had a pretty successful and important role there. And now he gets to line up on the opposite side of Myles Garrett. And I think the bigger thing is, can he get more pressure on the quarterback than Jadeveon Clowney had? I am not people that think Clowney's a bust. Sure. Number 1 overall pick. Yeah, he doesn't have the sack numbers, but Mitch, he's better at stopping the run than most in terms of being a defensive end. But the same time, you want another guy to rush the passer. But if you're going to do that, you have to make another move to fill up the defensive line, which the Browns made. So that's why I'm okay with this move and getting this defensive end that wasn't of high name, that a lot of people weren't really looking for. That's not the flashy signing. And who knows, maybe this is huge because the Browns then made another move on the defensive line. And I still think they're going to make one more move on the defensive line. I think what we've seen now is the Browns have said, we're going to address the defense and free agency to a degree, right? Because I still think we need safety help. And then we're going to address the wide receiver position in the draft, unless they make a trade, which they still very well could. But I'm fine with this signing. I'm excited to see how it plays out, to have another. He's not elite in terms of the other names out there, but you don't necessarily need elite. If you can get some guy that's above average or very good and put him on the opposite side of someone that's elite, he could become elite. So I can't wait to see how this works out.
No doubt. And that wasn't even the biggest signing, I think, because the Browns ended up landing reportedly former Vikings defensive tackle Dalvin Tomlinson for 4 years, 57 million, 27.5 million guaranteed. And that brings a big presence to the Browns defensive line in terms of the, I mean, this is the one where I'm like, this is a very, very good signing to bolster a defense that, at times could rush the quarterback last season, but it would be good to be able to put more pressure on guys to ensure the Browns defense can really lock down on opposing teams.
And the big thing here, Mitch, is this is a guy that's already played both the 4-3 and the 3-4. What Jim Schwartz is going to do here in Cleveland with the personnel we have has yet to really be seen. Obviously, he can say all he wants, but this is a guy that clogs the lanes up the middle. He is a very big defensive lineman, 325 pounds. I believe that's at least 35 pounds heavier than anybody in the Browns defensive line room, which we said the biggest issue was those guys got pushed around all the time. So to get a guy this magnitude now, and maybe if they're the 4-3, he's going to be next to Okoronkwo, all of a sudden, this is looking like a promising defensive line. That's why I still think the Browns are going to make one more move. We know that Hargraves, I think, was the number 1 target, but the Niners shelled out a ton of money for him.
Yep.
We know Draymond Jones, the former Denver Bronco, the St. Ignatius product, an Ohio State grad. Could we bring him home? That would have been a nice signing. He went to Seattle. Fletcher Cox is still out there. We've been hearing all these rumblings and rumors that a lot of these Eagles want to come play for Jim Schwartz because they loved what he did in his time in Philly. Mitch, if they get Fletcher Cox, this defensive line is not only improved, but smarter because of the veteran leadership between Tomlinson and then potentially someone like Fletcher Cox. But they don't need a Fletcher Cox. They just need to get somebody else. And all of a sudden, your line has went from one of the worst defensive lines in the NFL in just terms of interior play to a very respectable defensive line with Myles Garrett on one side. And by doing that, you allow your corners that I think we have a lot of trust in Denzel Ward, Greg Newsome, Martin Emerson, the first 3 to come to mind. You're going to allow them to potentially have more of an impact on the game. I mean, Greg Newsome didn't have an interception last year. Now he says it's because he was out of place, whether it was the slot or whatever it may be. Addressing this, I think, was the biggest needs for the Browns. so far they've done it. I can't wait to see, because I still think there's one more move they're going to make. I think they have to.
I can see that. And we want to know what you guys think the next move of the Browns will be. You can comment below here on the YouTube page, or we'll put it up on Spotify when we get the polls up or get the questions up. All right, when we come back, we'll be going more over the upcoming March Madness tournament. And we have a special guest coming up here on the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. Hey there, folks. This is Mitch Spinell, and I want to give you guys a quick message regarding 988. If you don't know what 988 is, it was created to make it easier to remember how to get help in the event of a mental health or addiction crisis. This is different than a medical, fire, or police emergency where 911 should still be called immediately. 988 connects you with Stark County's Crisis Center, which is equipped to help people in emotional distress or experiencing a mental health or addiction crisis. So remember, 911 for medical, fire, and police emergency help, and 988 for support in overcoming a mental health crisis in Stark County.
Buying a home has never been so affordable with record low interest rates. Hartzler's Quality Housing is ready to put over 40 years of experience to work for you. Family owned and operated since 1978, Hartzler's has a wide selection of model homes on site with a knowledgeable team to help make your new home a reality. Open 6 days a week. Visit them off I-77 in Dover or online at hartzlers.com. Hartzler's Quality Housing. Quality from start to finish.
You deserve the best. And at Ferris Chevrolet, Buick, Cadillac, Toyota, that's what you get. We consider you, the customer, to be part of our family. Anybody can make promises, but when you visit Ferris, you get the Ferris deal from a Ferris wheel. So if you're looking for a car, truck, or van, think Ferris.
You invest a lot in your home and vehicle purchases. Van Nostrand Young and Associates want you to feel secure should anything happen to those investments. We partnered with providers like Grange Insurance and other industry leaders to be sure you're presented with the most complete coverage to fit your needs. Because we're not only here to protect the items you invest in, we're here to protect your future as well.
Call Van Nostrand Young Insurance in North Canton at 330-497-1867.
We all have 206 things in common. Our bones keep us up and moving. And we at Cleveland Clinic Union Hospital care about every single one of them. From the tip of your finger to a brand new hip, our orthopedic experts will keep you going while keeping you safe. For every break and breakthrough, for every bone and joint, for every care in the world. Get the care you need when and where you need it. Visit unionhospital.org.
Wendy's without the Wendy's app is like Nugs without the sauce. Or a Frosty without the fries. Or a hamburger without the fresh beef. No! Level up. Get the app to order ahead, order delivery, earn free food, and get app-exclusive offers. One app, all the Wendy's.
Offer for a limited time at participating Wendy's. Terms apply. App registration required. Fresh beef available in the contiguous U.S., Alaska, and Canada.
Vive Auto Sales, located on West High Avenue in New Philadelphia and Cleveland Avenue in Canton, is a used car dealership committed to getting financing for everyone. We give every customer that walks in our showrooms a prime buying experience, no matter their credit score or financial situation. Current inventory can be viewed at www.wefinancenow.com. Check out our Facebook pages for the most up-to-date information about upcoming events and promotions happening at Vive Auto Sales.
Get out of the dugout and onto the field with help from Velocity Sports. Velocity Sports is a baseball and softball training academy with locations in North Canton and Canal Fulton. Our new Canal Fulton features 10,000 square feet of training space with 6 cages for hitting and pitching and a large commercial weight room. Velocity Sports will sharpen your skills and get you in the starting lineup. For more info, go to velosportsohio.com.
Hey, we welcome you back here to the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. It is now time to welcome in a special guest to the pod. He is the starting guard for the NCAA tournament-bound Cougars of the College of Charleston, who will be taking on the Aztecs of San Diego State this coming Thursday in Orlando. He is also an alum of West Liberty University in West Virginia, and of course, Indian Valley High School in Gnadenhutton, Ohio. He is one Dalton Bolin. Dalton, thank you so much for taking the time, man.
Hey, appreciate you, man. Thanks for having me on, man.
Of course, no problem, man. I mean, this is big. You guys are making this run to the NCAA tournament. You guys win your guys' conference championship game this past week against UNC Wilmington, and we see you guys celebrating on Selection Sunday, which is amazing because it's rare I get to see a guy that I actually know being able to partake in that celebration. I mean, what was that for you? That experience like for you guys being able to be in your guys' arena and just exploding when you hear your name called on screen?
Yeah, it was surreal. I think it's awesome. Like, that I'm in Charleston and like the city, the support we have here is what's amazing. Like there's a lot of people that pulled out and, it meant so much to those people, our fans and, our team, obviously. So it was just great to celebrate that moment with them.
No doubt. You've had quite an experience throughout your basketball career. I mean, starting off in Indian Valley, where you worked your way up into becoming one of the all-time leading scorer for the Braves. Then you go into West Liberty's program. You work your way up there to a point where you're just really trying to make a name for yourself, and you do that by making multiple All-America squads, including one year where you're wearing an eye patch for a good majority of the season. And then you get to this point where it's the end of your time with the Hilltoppers, and you're just kind of figuring yourself out of where you want to go next. You may go back to another school, you might go pro. And then I did read somewhere that you had an experience in that you had a phone call with the assistant coach for the Cougars and Brian Cloman. What did that conversation go like to convince you that College of Charleston was the way to go for you?
Yeah. Initially, like you mentioned, I loved West Liberty, and loyalty is a big thing for me. And, I wanted to end my career there. And, so I was dead set on going pro and, just kind of was doing some research and stuff and figured that my best option was to go Division I and, to get more exposure and play against a little bit, top-notch competitors. So entered my name in the portal, and I wanted to go to West Virginia. I was set stone going to West Virginia, wanted to play for Coach Huggins, being an Indian Valley guy himself. And, I was pretty set in stone with that. And then, like you said, I got a call from Coach Cloman, one of the assistants here. And, he was like the only dude that called me that I actually like enjoyed. I mean, I enjoyed talking to the other coaches, but like it was just outside of basketball, like he like brought up a bunch of stuff. Dude left a voicemail on my phone of him singing a whole Chris Stapleton song. He's just a real personable dude. So, it just stuck out with me, and then talked to him, and I knew they were about winning, and, Charleston's a great city. So just checked all the boxes. It was something different for me. And, I'm blessed that, I was able to get that phone call and lead me here.
Well, Dalton, aside from the skills that you have and that you were one of the top scorers in the conference this year, obviously the top scorer as part of the Cougars program, a big part of your game is toughness. I've seen your highlights. I've seen your highlights at West Lib. I've seen your highlights at Charleston, man. You are a guy who's able to get aggressive, and not just in basketball. I mean, I read up on the stories where I believe if I'm getting this wrong, I want to make sure you correct me. You super glued together like your stitchings, but the night before a football game so that you could play in it because you got into a car accident. And then there was obviously the eye patch thing where you got your eye injured in a pickup game. I mean, what being a guy who can really be aggressive on the court, a guy who can really get down and dirty when he needs to. I mean, how important is that to you? Not just as a player on court, but as someone who just kind of carries themselves in the way of like, he has a lot of confidence about him.
Yeah, I think it stems from, the things I'm passionate about. Like I'm an all-in guy, and, I love basketball. I love competing. I love sports. And, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it all in to the best of my ability. I realize that I'm not the most athletic. I realize that, I'm not even the most skilled, but, I think there's things, I think it's a skill to play hard. I think it's a skill to be in shape, to be able to play hard for a longer period of time. And, I love bringing the energy. I love, just honestly playing harder than people. That's what I take my pride on. But I think it just stems from where I grew up, growing up playing football, growing up, you know, I was never the most talented athlete, but, you know, I just love having fun. And, you know, it's fun to do things differently. And I think playing hard and playing a certain way, the way I do, is a little bit different than most people. So I just enjoy doing that.
No doubt. Now, I was going to say that you had basically you're starting in a new school the year before this past one at Charleston compared to the years that you had at West Lib. Obviously, you picked up a number of different things for your game along the way. What do you think was the biggest difference between the stuff that you learned at West Lib compared to the stuff you learned in a shorter term with the Cougars program?
Yeah, man, West Lib has done so much for me. You know, I think going to West Liberty, you know, I wasn't really expecting to play it. You know, I don't know. I didn't think basketball was going to be, you know, such a big part of my future. I wanted to be a part of a winning culture. I wanted to be a part of a winning team. And, you know, West Liberty was that. So I was grateful to be there. But then I redshirted my first year there. And, you know, then that's when I really like fell in love with like the game of basketball and, you know, getting better and finding ways to be a part of the team, you know, and have impact and roles. And, you know, West Liberty, our Charleston like coaches always tease with us because we got many D2 kids on our team at Charleston. They always tease with us, you know, in D2, all you learn is how to score. And, you know, that's not necessarily true, but, you know, at West Liberty, you know, that I really took pride in like how to score. And that's where, you know, I got better at. And then coming here in the College of Charleston was where I think I grew and developed a maturity in my game of accepting a role. You know, you're not always going to get the most shots. You're not always going to get the most playing time. And just accepting a role and thriving in it and being that guy that can be consistent, dependable. And, you know, you learn a lot more of things of like systems and how to like guard certain actions and this and that. And, you know, in the Division I level, you play against some top athletes where like you have to be on top of your stuff a little bit more than maybe you would have to be in Division II. But, you know, I would say like learning that kind of systems has really developed in my 2 years in Charleston.
Dalton, the Cougars started off as one of the hottest teams in the NCAA in all conferences this year. You guys won, I believe, 21 of your first 22 games. You had that long winning streak. You peaked up into the top 25 for the first time in 2 decades, which is a huge accomplishment. I mean, every team starts, though, day one. Every team starts at a certain point. From where you guys started early on in the season to where you're at now, what do you think are some of the biggest differences, not just for your game, but for the rest of your teammates?
Yeah, I think roles have been established. I think it's important for any team to have a culture. And I think that's one thing that makes us special is Coach Kelsey, the head coach here, he is elite at building a culture, not only with the team, but with the community. And, you know, the buy-in here is the most buy-in I've ever seen by a team. And I've been on, you know, this is my 7th team. And just having guys accept roles. And sometimes those roles aren't the most fun, you know, it's not the most minutes, it's not the most shots, it's not the most this, but we have a mature team, we have veteran guys. And honestly, I think a part of our secret success is we have guys that came from smaller divisions, you know, Division II transfers, NAIA transfers, and, you know, veteran guys. And coming from those places, you get a little bit more perspective of, you know, playing at Division I, and you become more appreciative of just playing in an atmosphere that's sold out, playing on national television, playing in March Madness. You become appreciative of any role that you can get, and you really embrace it. And, you know, I think obviously in the beginning of the year, you know, we were still trying to find ourselves a little bit. And then, you know, like you said, we went on that little run, and that was when we started to find ourselves. We lost ourselves in a couple games, but we're just getting better, and we're embracing our roles. And, you know, I think that's what makes us so dangerous.
Couple notable games along that way. You guys, the first loss you had in the season was against then number 1 North Carolina. You had a number of great wins in conference, and now you also beat my alma mater, Kent State University, who will also be making the tournament here in just a couple of days. Now, you guys go up against an Aztec squad that is coming on pretty strong throughout the last couple of weeks. I mean, what has Coach been really trying to make sure he can drill into your guys' heads as you go into a different environment against a very different team than you've experienced, not just this season, but your whole career, basically?
Yeah, I mean, they're a really good team. Like you said, I mean, anybody in this tournament's going to be great. You can throw the seeds out. The seeds don't matter. And any team that makes this March Madness tournament, they're on a winning streak. Most of them are on a winning streak, but they're top-notch teams. They're there for a reason. San Diego State is a great team. They're big. They play really physical. We're very athletic. They try to disrupt you. So there's a lot of X and O stuff that we've been going over, and we're ready for them. But I just think, what got us here is what we need to be focused on. And, ultimately, just we say it all the time, just be great at us, and we have unselfish dudes that we're 10 deep, and, we got guys that can really play. And, there's a reason why we're here. There's a reason why we have, 31 wins. And, we're going in the tournament not satisfied. Like we know we can win games. We know we can, be one of the top teams in the country. And, we're going to go there to prove that. So we're excited.
A big part of your game throughout the season for the Cougars, just all you guys in general, has been a three-point shooting. There have been a number of times this year where you guys can get really hot, and that can lead to some big offensive outbursts. Take those away. Let's say you have more of a grindhouse matchup against the Aztecs this coming Thursday. What are some of the biggest factors and most important factors that you would really have to drill down to ensure that you can get some really good progress?
Yeah, I think one thing that makes us one of the top teams in the country, they do say a lot about 3-point shooting and all this, but it's funny. We never go over, how to get threes. We never do. That's not part of our game plan. It just happens. They generate in the offense itself. But, we always tease, like, you have all these actions and all this stuff offensively, but the real game starts when you shoot the ball. And, we pride ourselves in offensive rebounding, going hard. That's something that you can always control. And that's something we've been really top notch at, just being relentless on the offensive glass. And, San Diego State is tough. They're a great defensive team. They're like ranked 10th in the country in defense. And we know it's going to be tough. It's going to be a grind out game, and it's going to be, one of them muddy, ugly games. And I honestly think we thrive in that type of game. And, it's going to be the battle of the backboards, and, we got guys for it, and we're ready. So I think the offensive rebounding is going to be a big key to our game. So.
Well, I will say, Dalton, 5 versus 12 is always a very interesting matchup in the NCAA tournament year in and year out. 31 of the last 36, if I'm not mistaken, have had at least 5 through 12 upset throughout the tournament's last couple of seasons. So, again, man, I really do appreciate you taking the time to join me today, and best of luck to you and the rest of the Cougars on Thursday and down in Orlando.
Right on, man. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Of course. And that's Dalton Bolin here on the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. We'll be back right after this.
The Furby Electric Supply Company has bright ideas for your home. Save money by converting to energy-efficient electrical products, or add ambiance with beautiful lighting features. It begins with a professional consultation and a visit to the Furby Lighting Showroom. Then certified Furby contractors complete your project right and on time. Since 1934, 4 generations have built a reputation of quality and trust, and they offer emergency services too. Just visit Furby.com. That's F-U-R-B-A-Y. The Furby Electric Supply Company.
You asked for it and we listened. Buckeye Career Center is now offering Certified Nail Technician as an adult education program. This 216-hour course begins in November and will run Tuesday through Thursday evenings from 5 to 9 p.m. Learn manicures, pedicures, infection control, salon operations, and more. Other part-time certification courses starting this fall include phlebotomy and welding. Call 330-339-2288 to register or visit BuckeyeCareerCenter.org for more information.
If you're looking for a new or pre-owned car or truck, why not see the Parkway Auto Group? Parkway is a special group of automotive experts with 8 brands to satisfy your needs. Come see the difference at the Parkway Auto Group on Commercial Parkway in Dover. 8 brands and 1 family. It's Parkway Auto Group.
Fall is in the air and part-time career enhancement courses at Buckeye Career Center are on the horizon. Registration is now open for Introduction to Beekeeping, Basic Small Engine Repair, and Sign Language. These part-time offerings run on Tuesday evenings and begin in November. Let Buckeye Career Center help you learn a new skill or advance your current skill set. Call 330-339-2288 for more information or to reserve your seat in one of these or our other part-time classes.
Where you matter. You matter. Everyone plays a part. We all have a role. Each of us can make a difference. You do matter, and the best way to have a positive impact is to pay it forward. With each of us helping one another to cope, feel better, and know that we belong. Pass on the positivity today. Tell someone else they matter too. All care. All care, all care. Where you matter.
We all have 206 things in common. Our bones keep us up and moving. And we at Cleveland Clinic Union Hospital care about every single one of them. From the tip of your finger to a brand new hip, our orthopedic experts will keep you going while keeping you safe. For every break and breakthrough, for every bone and joint, for every care in the world. Get the care you need when and where you need it. Visit unionhospital.org.
And welcome you back here to the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. Mitch Spinell alongside Mitch Abella. Mitch, it's now time for us to go over every single possible matchup that we will have here in the upcoming NCAA men's basketball tournament. March Madness is here. We have a number of teams to get through. We've already had 2 games played yesterday, the ones that made you tear up your bracket, and Texas A&M CC taking on Southeast Missouri State, and the Pitt Panthers beating Mississippi State to win their first the 2 matchups of the tournament. We also have Arizona State taking on Nevada tonight, while Texas Southern plays Francis Dickinson to take on a potential spot here in the upcoming tournament. Man, this is going to be exciting. I'm very much looking forward to a number of these matchups here. I have my personal one coming up here. When you look at this tournament, though, before we get into our bracket choices, what's the one game that really stands out to you in the first round that you're like, I need to make sure I witness this game?
I think that I might have a little bias here, and I think you're going to feel the same way. I have to see Kent State play Indiana. I think that's a really, really intriguing matchup. I think that both those teams, Mitch, are capable of making a run to the Sweet 16 at least. I'm not going to say who I'm picking, but I do have the winner of that game advancing to the Sweet 16 at least. But let's say, because I feel like that's something you were going to go for. Let's pick a different game maybe. And I look at something like Duke and Oral Roberts. Before the pairings came out, I had said Oral Roberts was my sleeper team. I was taking them regardless who they played, because this is a team that beat Ohio State 2 years ago in the tournament and returned their top 2 players this year from that team, Mitch. And now they play one of the 4 hottest teams in college basketball in Duke, who just won the ACC tournament, which makes me sick to my stomach, because I don't know if I can pick Oral Roberts anymore. You're gonna have to wait and see who I pick now in the East region. I have to make sure I see Oral Roberts first, Duke, because Oral Roberts has some phenomenal guards. They've been here before, so the experience is there. This Duke team, obviously as hot as anybody in college basketball right now, kind of mid-season, Mitch, it was like, oh boy, them in North Carolina, they're just not good. And then Duke flipped a switch. I believe they went undefeated at home this year, which was the first time ever in over, well, I don't think Coach K's teams ever went undefeated at Cameron Indoor. And they run through the ACC tournament, and now here they are. And so that's why I'm so intrigued, because I really do think if Oral Roberts was a 12 seed in any other region, they would win. Like, I wouldn't even think about it. I would see the name on the bracket. I would pick Oral Roberts to win. Here, I've been fighting myself. This is one of 3 matchups probably. I'm trying to think, oh, man, who am I taking here? But if I'm not allowed to pick Kent, Indiana, I'm taking Duke and Oral Roberts, because I think that is going to be one of the most, on paper as of now, intriguing games of the tournament in the first round.
Mine will, well, I have a couple of games that all feature Big Ten teams, but the one that I'm most excited for in that respect is the one between number 7 Texas A&M and number 10 Penn State. These 2 teams have been very, very hot down the stretch. You have potential to have a guy like Jalen Pickett be a breakout star in the tournament. He's been one of the best in the Big Ten this year. And I'm intrigued to see where this game goes down to. The 7-10 games are always very fascinating to me because they're not really big upsets, but they're the ones that are considerable enough that if you make a run as a number 10 team, that's saying something. So now we start off as I share my screen with you all. I will get this set up here and we will go to the big bracket that we have here set up. We will make sure to have a whole thing set up here. But yeah, this is basically us choosing the winners of the first round games, as well as I guess, our predictions for the remainder of the tournament. We can kind of make it a collective effort. Mitch, we start off here in the South Division where we have Alabama taking on Texas A&M CC after their win over Southeast Missouri State. Is there potential, Mitch, for this Alabama team, who has been a breakout squad in the last couple of seasons, especially this year, to have what happened to Virginia against University of Maryland, Baltimore County? Could this be an upset?
No shot. Bama's losing this game.
I didn't think so either. Bama is one of the top teams on the season. Brandon Miller is just a dominating offensive presence, and they have a number of very good players there in the mix as well. So I think for the start of the South Division, I'm going to take Alabama, although we could see some potential things happen here. Now we have an 8 versus 9. Maryland from the Big Ten, representing the Big Ten, versus West Virginia, who is a 19-14. Coach Huggins' squad going up against the Terps. I mean, where do you see this matchup going?
I give the advantage to West Virginia. This is the first game that kicks off all play on Thursday, Mitch. So it's going to be a very fun game to start. I think it's going to be close, but West Virginia played in a tougher conference in terms of the weight of all the metrics in terms of making the NCAA bracket. I'm going to give the slight edge to West Virginia here and take West Virginia because Maryland is just way too streaky for me.
I'm struggling with this one because it is. I've liked a lot of what Maryland has done this year. There have been times where I'm thinking, really, can this team really compete in the upcoming batch of games, especially down the Big Ten, and then of course into the tournament. So I think I can take you for this one. I think I'm going to go with West Virginia as well. If I can just get a thing down there. And there we go. So it'll be West Virginia versus Bama in the next round. And we're probably going to go, I think what we're going to do is we're going to do one side of this bracket first to start off. We're going to do the next side, and then we'll get up to about the Sweet 16 for the next ones. And then we'll take a break, and then we'll go back to the last one. All right. The next one we have is San Diego State versus Charleston. Now, we just talked to Dalton Bolin of the Cougars, who just won their conference championship. We're ranked this year for the first time in 20 years, and they'll take on an Aztec squad that the Aztecs in the Steve Fisher era had the kind of reputation of, they're always going to bottom out in the first and second round. Even if they had if they went 30-3 during the regular season, it's like, you don't have to worry about them. Is this the case, Mitch? Are you taking the upset here, or are you going with the Aztecs?
How can I not take the upset here? We just had Dalton Bolin on the show. Good karma for Dalton Bolin in Charleston and for Big Time Sports. I am taking the upset here because the Mountain West historically in recent past, Mitch, just does not perform well in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, it's I think I might have to go with you. I think I'm gonna have to go with C of, well, if I can get the thing down here, C of CC. Oh, I guess it is just 2 C's, but yeah, we can get that. So it's College of Charleston. We're taking for the upset. And if you guys disagree or agree with our picks, let us know in the comments below. We have Virginia versus Furman, 4 versus 13. Virginia is always a very solid squad, and Furman 27-7 on the year.
Upset again, Mitch. There's
really
a few teams that make the NCAA tournament that I am not a fan of at all. I just think they're extremely overrated. And the fact that Virginia is a 4 seed is mind blowing to me. Yes, their defense is good, but they can't score. And I don't know if Furman's seen a defense like this, but at the same time, if Furman can knock down some outside shots like they've been able to do this year, I have an upset here. I think we have a 12-13 matchup in the round of 32. I'm taking Furman.
Look, the Paladins, they can shoot the 3-pointer. They have some veteran guards in there. By the way, the last time Virginia was a 4 seed in the tournament was the year after the COVID season. They lost to the Ohio Bobcats. So I do want to take Virginia, but I'll concede to you. I'll go with Furman here just to make it interesting. So we have in here College of the matchup everyone will be watching that day. College of Charleston versus Furman. Creighton versus NC State, 6 versus 11.
This is intriguing. I've actually been a Creighton guy. I've actually watched a lot of Creighton basketball this year. I don't know why. I'm going to go Creighton here, though. I just think the Creighton is a very talented team, and they are always a team that makes some sort of run, whether it's 1 or 2 wins or a run to the Elite Eight. I feel like every single time they're in the tournament.
All right. So I really do like a lot of what NC State has to bring. I do like DJ Burns. I think he's a very solid post presence in the league. And it's going to be a close game. It's going to be close. But I think I might go with Creighton just because Creighton's offense is able to produce a little more at times. And they have this guy, Ryan Kalbrenner, who is, do you know he has a set like over a 70% field goal, not free throw percentage, field goal percentage this season. That's insane.
He's one
to
of
me.
One of the top in the country in terms of interior play.
That's
he's a force to be reckoned with.
That's unbelievable. So then we have Creighton going up against the winner of Baylor versus UC Santa Barbara. The Bears 22-10 versus UCSB 27-7. Who's going to win this one?
I'm going to lean with Baylor, but this isn't a foregone. Like, I'm confident in my pick. Baylor is also a team that's been streaky this year. Guard play matters. Their guards have been rather inconsistent at times, but obviously don't know so much about UC Santa Barbara. I'm going to take Baylor here just off the sheer experience factor with their coach, obviously winning a national championship a couple of years ago. I am not going to be surprised, though, if we're talking next week about UCSB upsetting Baylor.
I will say the Gauchos play a slower tempo than the Bears do, but Baylor's 2-4 in their last 6 games. Their defense isn't great. I'll give you this one. I'll go with the upset here and go UCSB just to keep it interesting. I'm basically just making it your bracket at this point, which is fine. Missouri versus Utah State. This is one too, because Missouri, Dennis Gates has done a great job this year with the Tigers in his first season. I think this one will go to the higher seed, and I think I'm going to go Missouri.
Yeah, I have Missouri on here. All I will say is the over on this probably cannot be high enough because both these teams do not play defense. This is not a game. If you like defense, watch Virginia Furman. If you don't like defense, watch this game because both teams give up more points per game than they score per game. Utah State, Mitch, the interesting nugget here, their head coach is the head coach that was at UMBC when they upset Virginia, the 16 versus 1 back a few years ago. He has 2 of those players from UMBC with him. It's going to be interesting to see how this goes. I do have Missouri, though.
Yeah, it feels like the right choice. And then we have Arizona versus Princeton at 15. Princeton, the Tigers at 21-8 versus 28-6. Arizona is still a quality team. I could see Arizona maybe getting upset early, but I don't think it's going to be first round early. I think I'm going to go Arizona.
Yeah, Arizona here. Although I think Princeton keeps it close.
I can see that. So then we go over from the south to the east where we have the Purdue Boilermakers. First time ever, Purdue getting a number 1 seed in the tournament against the winner of tonight's game between Texas Southern and FDU. Boilermakers been very good this year in the Big Ten, ran through the conference. I think this is just going to be an easy one no matter who they play. So I'm going to go with Purdue. What do you think?
I'm taking Purdue regardless who they play. Fairleigh Dickinson is actually a very solid team, but Texas Southern, Mitch, obviously 14-20. You see the record. They won their conference tournament to get in here. They're hot. I think Texas Southern wins tonight, but then falls to Purdue. So I have Purdue going to the next round.
Yeah, I'd like to see a 14-20 team get into the main mix. Memphis versus Florida Atlantic, 8 versus 9.
This is tough. Penny Hardaway has been doing a phenomenal job this year at Memphis. Florida Atlantic tied for the most wins in the country this year with 31. They shoot the 3 ball extremely well. Memphis, though, Mitch, to me, is just the better overall team. 8 and 9s to me are the hardest ones to pick. I'm going to go Memphis here. I'm not going to be surprised, though, if it's FAU, but I'm going to lean Memphis right now.
I'm going with Memphis as well. They have a great duo of Kendrick Davis and DeAndre Williams who can do some very good things for the Memphis offense. So we'll have Memphis versus Purdue in the next round. Then we'll have Florida Atlantic Duke taking on Oral Roberts, the game you mentioned before. Do we have an upset of the Blue Devils in the first round, or is this going to be a basic game?
This is so hard, Mitch. I mean, Oral Roberts, 30-4. They've won 17 games in a row entering the tournament. So I mentioned Duke's hot. So is Oral Roberts. But But the thing that I look at here is who have you played, who have you beat? Duke obviously has some more impressive wins. They have a couple quality losses where Oral Roberts lost to Houston by 38 this year, lost to St. Mary's, Utah State. These are all teams in the tournament. I'm going to have to lean Duke here, much as it kills me.
Look, yeah, it's going to be interesting. Oral Roberts already played spoiler 2 years ago against Ohio State as the 2 versus 15. And the Blue Devils have won 9 games in a row too. There's a lot of good freshmen on that squad. I think for me, Duke's going to win it out, but I do think Oral Roberts is going to give him one hell of a performance. I mean, I don't think it's going to be an easy win for Duke.
And the other thing, Kyle Filipkowski for Duke is phenomenal. Mitch, a lot of people don't know Oral Roberts has a 7'5" center. So not only is Oral Roberts going to be able to protect the paint, you then have their leading scorer who killed the Buckeyes. May I remind people?
Yeah.
In Max Abrams, who's back this year, averaging 22 points a game. That's why this one's so tough, because you have so many variables here that I don't think Duke is ready for, but is Oral Roberts ready for Duke? And that's why, I don't know. I'm just kind of leaning with Duke.
All right. Tennessee versus Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns versus the Volunteers. Could be a national championship matchup of team nicknames, but in terms of basketball, who do you got?
Upset. I'm taking Louisiana. I'm taking the Raging Cajuns here. I'm not a fan. Tennessee is one of those teams I mentioned at the beginning of the show, Mitch, that I'm just not a believer in. And we'll have to see, but they lost guard Zakai Ziegler earlier this month.
Yep.
That's a big blow. So I'm going to go with the Raging Cajuns here in an upset.
I like it. We have Kentucky versus Providence. This is a very interesting matchup between the Wildcats and Providence. We have the Friars, who have Bryce Hopkins, who was an All Big East performer this past season. This is tough. I want to go with the Blue Blood, but I want to hear what you have to say first.
This is one, Mitch, that if I was allowed to pick more games, I would tell you I have to make sure I'm watching this game as well, because there's so much here. These are two teams that have kind of been spoiled in recent past in terms of getting to March Madness, that I think the team that loses is going to be, oh, we need to change. Even if it's Kentucky, Mitch, I think you're going to start to hear some cries out of, oh, Coach Cal's been passed by. It's time to get rid of Calipari. Oscar Tshiebwe is the difference maker. I'm leaning Kentucky here, although this is one that if it goes Providence, I'm not going to be shocked at all. This might be the one that out of everything in my bracket, I would be the least surprised.
I was thinking the other day, like Calipari and Bill Self, now that all these, blue blood team coaches have retired or resigned. I mean, they're the old guards left. That's kind of amazing to think about, considering they were the young guns just a few years ago. Kansas State versus Montana State.
Kansas State.
I'll go K-State as well. Michigan State versus USC. Very interesting one. Michigan State lost to Ohio State in the Big Ten quarters.
They did. And Tom Izzo, though, Mitch, is not a fan of the Big Ten. He's a fan. But when he loses in the Big Ten tournament, he's much like Bill Self. He doesn't really worry about it too much unless it's I have to win to get into the tournament. I'm taking Coach Izzo in the month of March, and the fact that USC has to travel all the way over here to Columbus, Ohio to take on Michigan State. I'm going to take Michigan State.
Marquette versus Vermont.
I think this is probably the most likely a 15 seed has of upsetting a 2 seed. However, I'm very high on Marquette. I think Vermont is a very good team. I'm very high on Marquette, though, so I'm going to give Marquette. But I do think this is the most likely of a 15 seed beating a 2 seed.
I've seen the Tigers be like this kind of hipster pick to go all the way to the Final Four this year, which is very interesting to me. We might have to go. That's true. For Shaka Smart, former VCU coach, went to Texas, didn't win a tournament game. Now he's gone over and done a great job with them in his first season. We got to get through some of these here. Bama versus West Virginia in the second round. We'll go up to the Sweet 16, then we'll go to the other side.
Bama,
I can see that. Let's see here. Again, the matchup of the second round: College of Charleston versus Furman.
I want you to pick this one.
Okay. All right. So College of Charleston can get very hot from the 3 at times. They like to run. They like to play a fast-paced offense. I'll be nice to Dalton. I'll say College of Charleston here. And I really do hope it's right, because could you imagine, first of all, we're going to get a lot of people talking about Dalton because he's in the tournament and everything, all this. Could you imagine if we nail this. And this is this is gonna be the TikTok. This is gonna be the one I'm gonna have to make so people can go viral on it. Creighton versus UC Santa Barbara.
Creighton,
I could see. The next one would be Missouri versus Arizona. See, I think this could be the upset. I told you Arizona could get beat in the second round.
Do what you think.
I'm gonna overrule you, and I'm gonna say Missouri. I really like I think this is the one where Coach Gates can make a name for himself. Purdue versus Memphis.
Oh, this is the one I think is the hardest one to pick, Mitch. Is Penny Hardaway smart enough to realize that teams get back in games versus Purdue by pressing? Is he going to press in the first half? If he does, I think Memphis has a realistic chance to beat Purdue here.
I agree.
Like most teams that wait till 3 minutes to go and your season's on the line and presses in the second half, Purdue has been able to survive that all year at the free throw line. I'm going to take Purdue here, but Mitch, I think Memphis has a real good shot to beat Purdue here, but I just need to see what Penny Hardaway is going to do, which sucks because I can't change my pick after the game start.
I agree. Duke versus Louisiana.
Duke.
I think once you get past that first round matchup, it's not going to be as bad. Kentucky versus Kansas State.
I have Kansas State. I think Kansas State is a very, very good basketball team.
I agree. I'll go with Kansas State as well. Then we have Michigan State versus Marquette.
Marquette is where I'm going.
I was about to write that just before you said it. So that's what we have there for the Sweet 16. Then we go over to the other side where it's a couple of other games here in the mix. We have it so that it is going to be in the first round. We have Houston going up against Northern Iowa. So, I mean, Mitch, Houston has been a very good team all year. A team that some people thought had been a little overrated, but I still think it's a team that can get back into a huge run here. That being said, is Northern Iowa going to give them much of a game?
I hate to do this to you. Northern Kentucky. I don't want people to be confused.
Oh, sorry. I was looking at I don't know why I said Iowa.
I just want to say, but no, Houston wins.
Right.
Even with Sasser's injury, I think Houston gets by this one pretty easily.
This is what I think what it was. It was Iowa down below it, and then there was Auburn right next to it. I think this is one of the ones where it's going to be very, very close. I mean,
yes,
you got two very fiery coaches in Fran McCafferty for Iowa, Bruce Pearl for Auburn. The Hawkeyes have a pretty solid defense. Chris Murray will be a top NBA pick here in the next couple of months. Auburn's backcourt of Wendell Green and Katie Johnson is very good. I think I might have to go Iowa on this one. It's going to be close, though.
I think this is going to be an intriguing game. I think it's going to be very close, one or two possessions, by the end of the game. I'm going to differ with you. I have Auburn on my bracket, but I do think that this is going to be very intriguing.
Okay, so then you'll have something interesting to say for the next round's game because of this winner. Miami or Florida versus Drake.
I mentioned there's a few teams I don't believe in. Miami, I believe, is the second biggest fraud in the tournament. I'm taking Drake here. You can hate me all you want. If you like Miami, go ahead and take Miami. But personally, I just cannot be a believer in Miami. I have a text out to my cousin that says, do not let me ever pick or bet on Miami. And so therefore I can't pick Miami.
Did Miami let you down early this season in one of your bets? Is what I'm assuming? No? Okay. I was wondering.
No, I've actually just watched them a good amount because they were dominant at home. Then they got beat by Florida State, but I watched them in the ACC tournament. They just weren't impressive. They barely got by Wake Forest.
I for now I'm going to go with Miami, but I think Drake can pull off a Bryce Drew-esque kind of upset. We'll see. I don't think they're going to win this next game though, because the winner of that takes on Indiana and Kent State. Mitch, look, Indiana is so red hot right now. I have to be objective here. Kent State had a very good run into the MAC tournament, took down a Toledo squad twice this season to clinch the automatic bid. I would very much like to hear your thoughts on this before I make.
I'm taking Kent State. I'm taking Kent State off two things. Indiana couldn't win Big Ten. Kent State won the MAC. Kent State also has proven they can play with the top teams in the country. They lost by 5 at Houston on November 26th. They also lost to Gonzaga at Gonzaga by 7. And they also lost to another team in the tournament, the College of Charleston, at Charleston by 2. Kent State's battle tested, Mitch. I really love Sincere Carey. Jacobs is a phenomenal defender. I'm taking Kent State here. I think Indiana, if they win, I think the winner of this game, though, is advancing to the Sweet 16. I'll say that right now.
Kent State has had 2 losses this season to big schools in Indiana, in Houston and Gonzaga. The total amount of points that the differentiating in those 2 games was 12 points. I legitimately thought Kent State could beat Houston early on in the season, and I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna look like I'm gonna look like an ass if I get it wrong, but I don't care. You know, we can't read, we can't write, but we can beat Indiana in the tournament, and I'm ready to see. You know what? I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this whole thing too. Since you think Kent State's a whole fraud in the tournament, look at this nonsense that I'm about to pull. Look at that. There you go.
Yep.
Come at me.
I have them on my bracket.
Iowa
State, fast, baby.
I love it. Iowa State versus Mississippi. Is that State? Yeah.
No, Pitt.
Pitt. Excuse me. Yeah.
This is a tough one because typically, Mitch, one of the play-in games, a team advances in the tournament. I thought it would be Mississippi State. Pitt caught fire last night. I just don't believe in the other 2 teams that are playing to get into the tournament as an 11 seed. So I'm actually going to say, I think I'm going with Pitt.
Okay. I can see that. No, I mean, Iowa State hasn't blown me away this year, so I can see Pitt pulling off that upset. The other Ohio team in the tournament, Xavier versus Kennesaw State.
I'm going to go Xavier here. I think Xavier's pretty good. Coach Miller down there, since he's came to Xavier, has done a pretty nice job. So I'm going to go Xavier here. Stick with Ohio teams.
This might be again, Texas A&M versus Penn State. I really like what this matchup could bring to the first round. There were times where like these 2 teams didn't look like they're going to make the tournament, and then they did. They got hot at the right time. I think Jalen Pickett could be the name of the tournament. I would go with Penn State in this matchup, but I want to hear what you have to say.
I think it's a toss-up. It really is. On my bracket I have printed in front of me, I have Texas A&M right now, more so because I want to see what happens or potentially see the next round game. But this is a tough one, Mitch. This is one I could potentially flip-flop over the next 24 hours before the tournament starts. It's just tough. I think I just kind of lean with Buzz Williams a little bit more.
All right. So then Texas versus Colgate.
Texas. This is the one that everybody's overthinking in terms of, the 15 seed beating the 2 seed. No, Texas is going to win this.
So we have Kansas versus Howard in the first round. I assume you're taking Kansas.
Yes.
We're all taking Kansas here. Bill Self will likely, it seems to be in good health. It seems, or better health than it was a few days ago. He should be back for the tournament. Another good Big Ten matchup for a Big Ten team in the tournament, Arkansas versus Illinois.
Another tough one, another 8-9 matchup that's hard to kind of pick, but I'm going to lean the Fighting Illini of Illinois here over the Muss Bus in Arkansas.
That's fair. I have no dog in that fight, so I will say Illinois as well. St. Mary's versus VCU. Very, very interesting matchup.
Another one where a team has to fly across the country, Mitch. I just don't know how that fares for St. Mary's. Really, their only big games this year have been against their conference opponent in Gonzaga. VCU is very hot right now, winning their conference tournament to get in here. And keep in mind, the last time they made the tournament, they were held out because of COVID restrictions. I'm going to go with VCU here.
Yes, I forgot about that. Holy cow. This one might be another upset for me. UConn versus Iona. I really like what Rick Pitino's done with that program. I think UConn isn't as strong as they would like to be going into this tournament. So I'm picking the upset and going Iona, but I don't know what your thoughts are.
I like that thought process. I think there's a very good possibility of Iona beating UConn. I have UConn because I believe Rick Pitino's foot is already out the door because there's already been rumors he is linked to be the next coach at St. John's.
Fair. I can see that. Then we have the winner of Arizona State and Nevada will take on TCU, 6 versus 11. Is this TCU? I'm assuming you're taking
TCU. Both these teams do not deserve to be in the tournament. I'm actually very upset that Arizona State, Nevada, one of these two is going to be in the tournament. It should be Rutgers, but I'm going TCU.
All right. So then we have Gonzaga against Grand Canyon. I assume Gonzaga.
Yep.
Yeah. And then we have the final 2 games, Northwestern back in the tournament. By the way, did you see that kid from the meme of that Northwestern kid crying is now, I couldn't believe that when I saw it today. Time flies. Northwestern versus Boise State.
If I'm saying it one way, I have to be true to my other side. It looks like you're going with Northwestern, but you're asking a team from, the Midwest to fly all the way out west to play a team from the West Coast. I'm going to lean Boise State here as much as it kills me.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I mean, I still think Northwestern can get the job done, although Boise State can keep it close. I I don't know. Then we have UCLA versus UNC Asheville. Let's just pick UCLA and get that over with. Although UCLA, not without one of their top players, could be very interesting here in the next couple of rounds. Houston versus Iowa.
Houston.
Let me get this thing out of the way here so I can move the screen. Okay, so the next one would be, well, I already picked that one. So
I did too.
From that.
Penn State, maybe.
Pitt versus Xavier.
Give me Pitt.
Pitt. Wow. So you're a first 4 team making the Sweet 16. Okay, I see you. Penn State versus Texas.
Texas,
I like that. Kansas versus Illinois. I will pick that one for you. Let's just go with that. VCU versus Iona.
You pick this one.
This is tough. I think Iona can beat UConn. I don't necessarily 12 versus 13. I'm going to go VCU. I think it's going to be close, but I think that VCU is just enough in the tank. Let's go TCU versus Gonzaga.
The Zags, baby.
Zag. All right. Northwestern versus UCLA. This could be upset potential, I think.
It very well could be. I still believe in Tiger Campbell and Jaime Jaquez in UCLA. And I think everyone just wants to see a rematch of Gonzaga UCLA from that memorable Final Four game. So I'm taking UCLA.
No kidding. All right. So that's going to be where we stop and take a break. We'll be back right here, however, on the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. Hey there, folks. This is Mitch Spinell, and I want to give you guys a quick message regarding 988. If you don't know what 988 is, it was created to make it easier to remember how to get help in the event of a mental health or addiction crisis. This is different than a medical, fire, or police emergency where 911 should still be called immediately. 988 connects you with Stark County's Crisis Center, which is equipped to help people in emotional distress or experiencing a mental health or addiction crisis. So remember, 911 for medical, fire, and police emergency help, and 988 for support in overcoming a mental health crisis in Stark County.
Are you trying to increase your speed, quickness, vertical leap, and agility? If so, NST Sports Performance is for you. NST trains athletes ages 5 through pro. NST designs each program specific to the athlete's needs, goals, and sports. For more, visit nstsports.com. Locations in North Canton and New Philadelphia. It's nstsports.com.
It takes a lot of practice to have a winning team. Albin Title has over 100 years of combined experience handling real estate, title, and escrow transactions. They serve Tuscarawas, Stark, Carroll, Harrison counties, and more. So choose Albin Title for your next home refinance, sale, or purchase. They'll get it done quickly and professionally. Contact Albin Title at 330-334-5800 or visit their website albintitle.com. Let them put their experience to work for you.
Hard work is something you're accustomed to. Van Nostrand Young understands that principle. Our access is achieved with organizations like Grange Insurance. Safety and prevention specialists utilize our VanCan assessments process to ensure that you and your colleagues are in the best hands. You want the safest environment for your business, and we can guide you there.
Call Van Nostrand Young Insurance in North Canton at 330-497-1867.
If you're purchasing a new home, the team at Hartzler's Quality Housing is here to help. Take advantage of record low interest rates to make your new home a reality. Locally owned and operated since 1978, Hartzler's Quality Housing has the experience to guide you through the process. You'll find a wide selection of model homes on site to fit any budget. Open 6 days a week just off I-77. You can also visit them online at hartzlers.com. Hartzler's Quality Housing. Quality from start to finish.
You deserve the best. And at Ferris Chevrolet, Buick, Cadillac, Toyota, that's what you get. We consider you, the customer, to be part of our family. Anybody can make promises, but when you visit Ferris, you get the Ferris deal from a Ferris wheel. So if you're looking for a car, truck, or van, think Ferris.
Wendy's without the Wendy's app is like Nugs without the sauce. Or a Frosty without the fries. Or a hamburger without the fresh beef. No! Level up. Get the app to order ahead, order delivery, earn free food, and get app-exclusive offers. One app, all the Wendy's.
Offer for a limited time at participating Wendy's. Terms apply. App registration required. Fresh beef available in the contiguous U.S., Alaska, and Canada.
Get out of the dugout and onto the field with help from Velocity Sports. Velocity Sports is a baseball and softball training academy with locations in North Canton and Canal Fulton. Our new Canal Fulton features 10,000 square feet of training space with 6 cages for hitting and pitching and a large commercial weight room. Velocity Sports will sharpen your skills and get you in the starting lineup. For more info, go to velosportsohio.com.
Hey, welcome back here, the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. It is now time to get back to our picks for the upcoming March Madness tournament, and I will share the screen once again. I wish we could find a way to share both of our screens while we also have up here the bracket. If you guys at home know a way in which we can do that, let us know in the comments below. But for right now, we are going to stick with a couple of our picks here, starting off with the Bama versus College of Charleston matchup. You might be wondering how the hell we let that team go through. Well, it's because we interviewed one of their players, Dalton Bolin, on this show. Be sure to go back and watch that and watch one of our clips here on the channel.
And the better team. We're the better team too, Mitch. That's why.
You were the one. All right. So no, yeah, that was a joke. We do genuinely think that they can beat San Diego State, and when going up against Furman and Virginia, I could see that. But then here we go. We have Bama versus College of Charleston, to where this is the one, Mitch, where I'm like, I don't know if this is the matchup that they can pull it off. I'd like to see it happen, but at the same time, for the sake of a good tournament, but for the sake of a picking here, I think Bama is just overall a better team.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm gonna have to take Alabama here. One of the best teams in the country. That's really all it comes down to. They're more than likely going to have the National Player of the Year, and that's ultimately going to be the deciding factor.
So then we have Bama in the Sweet 16, or the Elite Eight, We have Creighton up against Missouri. This is an interesting one. I think Missouri could keep up with Creighton, but I think Creighton's offense does a lot of good compared to Missouri's.
Yeah, if we're going between the two teams we have here on our bracket, I'm going to have to say Creighton will beat Missouri and advance to the Elite Eight.
All right, so then we have Purdue up against Duke. And, as good as Purdue has been this year, Mitch, a lot of people were kind of surprised they were taken as a number 1 seed. Not a lot of people, but some people were that I've seen. Do they have a close one against Duke? Does Duke pull off the upset here, do you think?
Mitch, these are two teams that already met once this year. Purdue beat Duke by 19. I think that is why Duke is going to beat Purdue here and advance to the Elite Eight. I think Duke has gotten better since they played earlier on this season. I think Purdue, we are accustomed seeing fall short of their goals as they've not made a Final Four under Matt Painter. I'm going to take Duke here.
Yeah, look, Duke didn't lose that game at home, obviously, because you mentioned they went undefeated at home this year, but that's a tough task to take on a Boilermaker squad like the one we've seen this year. Kansas State up against Marquette. Are you taking the hipster pick, Mitch?
Give me Marquette.
All right, I'll give you Marquette, and I will raise them up against the Boilermakers. So then we have in the next matchup, Houston going up against Iowa. Houston up against Kent State. I think we have to do what's right. Look, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to Franklin Hall and the MAC and to the Franklin Student Center, or the Franklin Hall and the Student Center, and every hall at Kent State. I love you all, but at the same time, look, what you got a point? Come on now.
If Sasser is not healthy for Houston,
sure,
I think there is a real world and real possibility Kent State is going to the Elite Eight.
Do you know how much?
Yeah. I think Houston wins this, and I think Houston kind of turns around the thought of them right now, because think about it this way, Mitch. The last memory we have of Houston was them losing in their championship game against Memphis.
Yes.
And a lot of people always kind of leave that in their head, like, oh, you know what? I just saw them lose. They're not that good. If Sasser is not 100%, well, we'll just say 85%, because 85% of your best player is probably better than most teams' best players. If he's not Houston needs to be able to handle the first 2 games easily to a point where they can get him off the floor and rest. And then you have a whole nother week preparation. I'm taking Houston now, but I am telling you right now, if Sasser is not healthy and Kent State plays Houston or Indiana, because I told you, whether it's Indiana or Kent State, I believe that winner is going to advance to the Sweet 16. Houston will go down. Whether it's Indiana or Kent State, obviously I have Kent State here. I think there's a real possibility that Houston is the first 1 seed. Well, depending when Purdue plays in my bracket, but I think Houston is the first 1 seed to really have potential to be upset.
You know, I would love to see Kent State win the rematch. I would love to see Kent State make a Final Four in not my lifetime, because they did it only 20 years ago, but it would be a thrill to be able to fully witness another Kent State run into the tournament. I would love to see something like that. I'm just using my head here, and my head says Houston's a better team on the floor. Pitt versus Texas. Pitt versus Texas. I think I know where you're going with this.
Texas.
Yeah, I thought so. And this is going to create a very intriguing Elite Eight matchup that I think we'll get to. We'll talk about it. Kansas versus VCU. Tough one.
Mitch, it's not often a team repeats.
No.
Often a team that won the national championship even gets back to the Final Four. I don't have VCU here. I have UConn. But for the sake of our bracket here, I would have Kansas bowing out here.
Really? Okay. So you would have Kansas bowing out against UConn. Could you see them bowing out at all against the Virginia Commonwealth squad?
I think Kansas is better suited to beat Virginia Commonwealth. I think I would take them here. But if we're going with your pick and we're going with my philosophy, I have Kansas losing here.
Okay. So
you pick what you think. I mean, I think
I know I'll meet you in the middle, and I'll say that this is the one that bows out. So I'll say VCU somehow makes a run to the Elite Eight. Watch them lose in the first round here. Gonzaga versus against UCLA. That matchup that you mentioned was amazing 2 years ago, and they could meet again. And UCLA's on paper the better team this year, but I think Gonzaga might take this one.
I think that losing Jalen Clark with the Achilles injury for the season is a brutal blow for UCLA, right?
Yeah.
Losing anybody in your starting 5 at this point is a massive loss. I just think I trust the senior laden team, a team that's been deep in the tournament before, over just Drew Timme and Mark Few of Gonzaga. I'm leaning UCLA here.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. I'm going to go with UCLA. All right. So we have our Elite Eight. Bama versus Creighton. Bama. Okay. Bama's a good team. No shame in that, man. Bama's a solid team. So Bama's the first one in the Final Four. They will take on Purdue and Marquette's winner. Interesting one here. I like how this played out.
This is you. This is all you, my friend.
I think this is the one where we go with the hipster pick again, and I think Marquette's going to make this amazing run. They're going to be like the VCUs, your Butlers, your Loyola Chicago. I mean, Marquette's won a championship before, way back in the 70s. So it's like, yeah, they're not quite the program that they once were, but they've made the turnaround. And this could be the year where it's like a Baylor-esque run, a Houston-esque run, where you finally take them seriously as a program after all these years again. Houston up against Texas. That's funny.
Texas.
Whew, okay. I see you. Texas would be very interesting to see if we have Shaka on one side and then Texas on the other. VCU versus UCLA.
If we're going off those two teams, I'm taking UCLA.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we're just kind of making concessions here. We're just having like a little bit of fun here on this show. So it's a very interesting Final Four. We have Bama, Texas, Marquette, and UCLA. As far as Bama,
this is pretty easy.
Yeah,
this is pretty easy to me.
I mean, I would have, if it came down to my own choice, I'd say Bama and Texas. But I need to hear what you have to say first.
Well, I don't really have to say much because that's what I actually have.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Taking on Texas in the national championship.
There you go. That's a very intriguing matchup. So we have Alabama going up. So it's a pretty much Southern kind of national title game in what was it? Houston. Yeah. So it'll be Alabama up against Houston. Why's my thing not? There we go. We have Alabama versus Houston in the championship game.
Texas.
Why do I keep saying Houston? It's because Houston's hosting. Damn it. Anyway, I forgot to put Texas up on the thing here. So then we have Alabama and Texas, man. This is I think it's easy. This one's easy for me. I think I'm gonna have to go with Alabama, but I'd like, if you have a case for Texas, let me know. Otherwise, I think we know who's the pick.
I don't have a case for Texas because I think Alabama is the best team in the country. I think they have the best player in the country, and I think ultimately that's why they prevail. They keep the streak of a number one seed. I believe it's been 8 years in a row. A number one seed has won the national championship. Not only that, but I believe it's been at least 20 years in a row. I want to say it's 27 that a team across the mid-state or mid-line of the country, dividing East and West, has won. And I'm going to go with Alabama here as the national champion.
There's some intriguing math to get into this. Let me see if I can get this here. So I'll put it up one more time. We, as a collective, have decided to make the Alabama Crimson Tide our national champions for the upcoming 2023 NCAA tournament over Texas. We have those picks there. We would love to know your guys' picks coming up here and your thoughts, obviously, on our tournament. We'll probably be posting our individual brackets coming up here in the next day or two. Until then, we thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to check up on future podcasts and future clips coming out, and be sure to follow us on TikTok at Mitch Spinell. And we also have YouTube shorts out on here. Mitch, what's the fact of the day?
Mitch, I don't have a fact of the day other than make sure, if you can find the time, to watch Mount Union in their Final Four game in the Division III Final Four, and happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patty's Day to you. And thank you so much for listening or watching to the Big Time Sports Podcast Show.